Howdy, howdy, howdy. My name is Anachi Sasuke, and welcome to Reading SCP-001. When I first started doing the SCP Wiki 7 years ago this May, I didn't know that SCP-001 was going to be like this, and the first few episodes of the series ended up being just SCP-001. I eventually started doing SCP Sidestep for reading all of the interesting looking side stories and reacting to the animations like I was asked to. Obviously, that fell by the wayside for various reasons. But I still wanted to come back to SCP-001, especially after finding out there are more of them. And I tried to do that in SCP Sidestep, but because of the way they configured there being more of them, it didn't really work out. So I was going to come back to it at some point. But then I realized that the way that they went ahead and redid SCP-001 is they rearranged some of the stories, and even if I put them in chronological order, some of the ones that I've already read are not in the right spot to be chronological order. So faced with that, I realized the only way I'm really going to make any kind of progress on these at all is if reading SCP-001 has its own playlist. So that's what this is. And I'm going to be starting at the beginning because I have no real way of knowing which ones I've read since they keep moving them and changing them. So, the following files have been classified top secret by the order of the administrator. General Notice 001 Alpha. In order to prevent knowledge of SCP-001 from being leaked, several /no false SCP-001 files have been created alongside the true files. All files concerning the nature of 001, including the decoys, are protected by a memetic kill agent designed to immediately cause cardiac arrest in non-authorized personnel attempting to access the file. Revealing the true natures of SCP-001 to the general public is a cause for execution, except as required under blankety blank blank. Warning. Any non-authorized personnel accessing this file will be immediately terminated through Berryman Langford memetic kill agent. Scrolling down without proper memetic inoculation will result in immediate cardiac arrest followed by death. You have been warned. There it goes. Memetic kill agent activated. Continued life signs confirmed. Removing safety interlocks. Welcome authorized personnel. Please select your desired file. So we have in a bubble here, as I order them chronologically. If I order them chronologically, it takes away what it just said, but if you order them randomly, it says there were 3 that were newly declassified. And if I put them in order, in addition to there being some that were newly declassified, Ouroboros, as you guys have seen, does this. So in addition to me having to make a playlist specifically for SCP-001, there is going to be a series of videos within that playlist that is just this. And again, there is an SCP sidestep where I attempted to do this, but it didn't work out because it was too all over the place. So I will come back to that at some point when I get there. When I get there, it's going to be its own series of videos, probably 4, depending on how long those 4 entries are. But what I'm going to do now is just see how many I can read in, like, I guess an hour? Probably less, depends on how big they are. So the first one is Sheaf of Papers, which is Keter, because a lot of these are probably Keter. Jonathan Ball's proposal. SCP-001 Keter. Special containment procedures. To date, no adequate containment procedure has been developed to deal with the possible threat posed by the Sheaf of Papers. This is due, in part, to the controversial nature of the item and debates concerning the necessity of its containment. This controversy is reflected in the item's changing object class and the procedures utilized in its containment. The current administration, despite charges of paranoia, has classified the object Keter while requesting permission for a higher object class to be created and applied uniquely to this item, considering it to be the most dangerous of all known possible items. The reason for this classification and changing attitudes towards the Sheaf of Papers are dealt with in the description and notes. At present, the Sheaf of Papers is located in a code-locked briefcase made of a high-tensile reinforced polymer. The room and the briefcase are monitored at all times by security cameras. The briefcase cannot be opened without unanimous special clearance from all current O5 officers. The briefcase itself is stored in a small, fully lit, single-room off-site building erected somewhere. Disposable personnel are to guard the building, but may not enter without the aforementioned agreement from the O5 officers under threat of immediate termination. This off-site building exists for the sole purpose of housing the Sheaf of Papers and is wired for detonation in an emergency. It is the opinion of the current administration that the Sheaf of Papers represents the greatest threat to national and global security known to exist. Nevertheless, due to the special circumstances regarding its mode of function, further research on the item is disallowed despite its promotion in the past, when the Sheaf of Papers was contained in a minimum security conditions. Description: SCP-001 is a simple sheaf of papers stapled together in the top left corner. The top sheet is a covering sheet reading simply "Confidential Report on Special Items, Classified." The number of subsequent papers stapled to this covering sheet is indeterminate and have ranged from 3 to 30. The report is unsigned and its origin is unknown. The first appearance of this report was on blank 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 when it appeared on the desk of someone who is now deceased. The report at the time described the living room, SCP-2. Shortly after reading the report with incredulity, blank blank was contacted by phone regarding said item. The next time they perused one, it described not the living room but biological motherboard, SCP-3. They immediately closed it, thinking it was a different report, and searched for the original report on 2. Not finding it, he again opened 1, and this time described not 3, but the 12 rusty keys in the door, 4. Closed it once more, and opened it immediately to read of the skeleton key, 5. It is not known what the next actions might have been. At varying times following the incident, the aforementioned items were discovered. Insufficient research exists concerning the correlation between one and all other known items. However, it has been established that every event regarding the discovery of a new SCP item has followed a report on that same item appearing beneath the cover sheet of 1. The current administration regards this coincidence as proof of causal connection. Additional notes: whether the Sheaf of Papers is to be regarded as an advanced warning system, or whether the Sheaf of Papers itself is to be regarded as the creator of the items requiring special containment, remains to be seen. However, the distinction is unimportant in the eyes of the current administration. The fact remains: no new items appear unless it is opened and read. It is for this reason that the current administration refuses to repeat the mistakes of the past, mistakes that have resulted in over 1,000 SCP items coming to the knowledge of the SCP unit. Arguments concerning the non-lethality of 1 itself, is its theoretically beneficial use as a warning system, or its use as a progenitor of advanced biological and non-biological weapons have not swayed the current administration. Nor have arguments criticizing the extreme containment procedures employed in respect to an item that displays no nefarious qualities and is not animate as such. Critics are reminded that these procedures are intended not to contain the item itself, but to isolate it from human interaction, which is to be regarded as the true threat. Although the current administration refuses to remove the object from isolation barring special authorization as noted above, past administrations have counseled daily with the item, and future administrations will no doubt counsel similar behavior. Nevertheless, it is the opinion of the current administration that, barring the destruction of the Sheaf of Papers, it is to be contained until such a time when responsibility for its containment falls upon future administrations. So this first SCP-001, the idea is that it's the progenitor SCP because they don't exist until you look at it, or it tells where the rest of them are, and its existence is how there even are known to be more. Was that one of the ones that's declassified? It is not. Dr. Gears says the prototype. Item designation number 86243AR1. Warning: item displays aggressive and dangerous behavior. Description of item: 6'5", 97 pounds, approximately average, varies by 5 to 10 pounds higher or lower. Unknown age, gray-brown skin, may be bruising. Eye color milky blue, no hair, emaciated appearance, bone and muscle structure unlike any recorded species. The legs are long and thin, ending in sharp black points. 3 fingers on each hand, also ending in black points. Legs and arms are twice as long as torso. No reproductive organs, anal orifice, ears, nose, or pores anywhere on body. Head is spherical, very large in proportion to body. Neck appears too thin to support head. Mouth extends halfway around head, no lips. 21 teeth, spaced randomly around mouth. Many appear broken, rotten, or chipped. Eye is a large ball-shaped milky blue sphere, presumably kept in the head or throat. Appears to roll in the mouth when the mouth is open, has no pupil or iris. Detail of current containment. Room is lead-lined and kept lit with floodlights. Temperature is kept at 98 degrees with 100% humidity. Room is sealed with a reinforced steel blast door. Outer area patrolled by guards with high-powered strobes. Anybody entering the containment room should carry a strobe and wear welding goggles. Any person attempting to remove the item or enter without authorization is to be shot on sight. Report: recovered in Guatemala early this week. First reported as a demon seen by several boys on a rural road. Appears to be sick or injured. Boys reported seeing the creature panting and jerking its legs. Creature then raised its head and exposed its eye. Boys ran home, reporting to local law enforcement. Several reports of horrible roaring or shrieks from locals over several days. 12 people admitted to local hospital with severe radiation poisoning and 7 reported missing. Recovery team assembled, headed by General McCoy, and dispatched from base ADRX-19. Reports to overseers from recovery team after standard containment failure led to additional containment protocols developed by Dr. Herman Keeter. Dr. Keeter was unfortunately killed in the initial testing, after which creature was moved to ADRX-19. Creature appears to be able to create micro-singularities, using them both as a form of teleportation and defense. These singularities disappear after several seconds after creation, but emit massive amounts of radiation and cause severe damage to the surrounding area. The eye appears to control these manifestations, as it has always had the eye exposed when creating a singularity. Omnivorous, it views humans as a food supply. Creatures show signs of extreme fear and sickness in the presence of high heat, humidity, or bright flashing light. Creature appears unable to teleport through lead and cannot form singularities when its sick state. When well, it is an extremely fast and cunning being and has killed several recovery agents with both its singularities and claws. Amidst occasional shrieking sounds, all attempts to communicate have failed. Addendum. Additional objects recovered. Overseers considering conversion of ADRX-19 to a dedicated recovery and containment facility. Reports may need censorship for reasons of security. So I'm not really sure why it's called the prototype, unless it's just the prototype for the SCP facility, company, whatever. Because it could have been the first one they captured, and that's why it's the prototype for how it works. Codenamed Dr. Clef, the Gate Guardian. If it's a Dr. Clef one, it's probably going to be ridiculous. Oh, the picture's moving. SCP-001 photograph from the vantage point at Site 0. Note the 4 flaming wing appendages located above and to either side of the figure. Oh, is this one guarding my guess is it's guarding the Garden of Eden or something. Euclid/Keeter. Because of the nature of the Gate Guardian, no containment procedures are necessary. 24/7 monitoring is to take place from 10-kilometer plus distance from a predetermined location, Site 0. The location of Site 0 is known only to the current SCP administrator and the single overseer level agent of Abrahamic Faith, 0514, assigned to monitor the Gate Guardian from Site 0. Said agent is authorized to take any action necessary should the Gate Guardian become active, and is required to immediately alert the administrator and all other overseer level agents should the Gate Guardian show any change in behavior, as this may constitute the beginning of a Patmos XK class end of the world scenario. Should the Gate Guardian become active in any way, personnel are required to immediately consult the Patmos series of emergency orders. Decoding algorithms for emergency order Patmos are to be maintained on site at Site 0 in the possession of the designated observer, and are to be transmitted to SCP Foundation offices only in the event of the Gate Guardian becoming active. Foundation personnel with vital roles in one or more variants of emergency procedure Patmos are to be advised to take the following precautions. To maintain good relations with one or more organized Abrahamic faiths. To maintain on hand a supply of the following: holy water, a rosary, a crucifix, cross, prayer rug, or other symbol blessed by the Abrahamic cleric of bishop, an Abrahamic cleric of bishop or equivalent higher rank, a copy of Abrahamic scriptures, Torah, Bible, Quran, and standard emergency supplies in mobile form, bug-out bag. In case of a pre-millennial rapture scenario, all vital personnel are to designate a secondary operative of non-Abrahamic faith. Said secondary operative is to be informed of the location of the primary designate's copy of emergency procedure Patmos emblematic kill agent inoculant, and is to be kept on ready status to take over the primary duties as necessary. To maintain familiarity with all other SCPs involved in possible Patmos XK class end of the world scenarios. Description: the Gate Guardian is a humanoid entity approximately 700 cubits in height, located at an undisclosed location near the intersection of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. The following features are known about the entity: a number of luminous wing-like appendages emerging from the shoulders, back, temples, ankles, and wrists of the entity. Although an accurate count has never been established, most observers place the number of wings at anywhere from 2 through 108, with the mean number being 4. A weapon, possibly a sword or knife, SCP-001-2, The weapon appears to emit flames at a temperature rivaling that of the sun, based on spectrographic analysis, although there appears to be no destructive effects from the intense heat on the surrounding area. Any entity that approaches within 1 kilometer of the Gate Guardian is immediately struck by the weapon and obliterated from existence. Any and all hostile actions taken toward the Gate Guardian have resulted in the annihilation of the attacker, regardless of range. See Incident Report, Indian Ocean Submarine Missile Experiment, December 26, 2004. The Gate Guardian appears to be standing with his head bowed in a gesture of supplication, with the sword held in both hands point down in front of it. Since originally recorded by the founder over redacted years ago, the Gate Guardian has not deviated from this stance. Human beings exposed to the Gate Guardian report hearing a voice in their heads, giving them a directive which the subject reports cannot be disobeyed. The most common directive is forget, which results in the subject walking away from the Gate Guardian with no memory of having encountered it. On rare occasions, however, other directives have been given. The most famous of these is the one given to the founder, prepare, which he has claimed formed the impetus for the founding Data Redacted to catalog and contain any and all supernatural and or paranormal artifacts that represent a serious threat to the current existence of humanity. This is the organization now known as the SCP Foundation. Observers have reported that the Gate Guardian appears to be standing in front of a gate of immense proportions. Long-range photographs have occasionally detected what appears to be a pastoral grove within, containing numerous other entities of the same composition as the Gate Guardian, as well as several full fruit trees of unknown composition. Of particular note are 2 fruit trees of immense proportion near what appears to be the center of the grove. One, it is noted, appears to be an ordinary apple tree, although the other bears a fruit unknown on Earth, described as data expunged. It is the avowed belief of the founder that the gate which the Gate Guardian guards may be the gate to probably the Garden of Eden, based on correlations with ancient Babylonian texts and the Dead Sea Scrolls, in which case one can deduce that the entity known as the Gate Guardian may be an angel. But it says expunged, but it probably is angel. This isn't Night Vale, we can talk about it. Addendum 001A, experimentation on the effective kill range of the sword. A disposable personnel is instructed to approach as closely as possible on foot. Result, upon making visual contact, they are ordered to leave. They immediately turn and walk away. Despite repeated orders to continue, they refuse to obey and are terminated. Upon their termination, all staff involved are immediately obliterated by an unknown force, presumably the sword. Experiment 2. B. One remote operated research robot guided to approach from the ground. Upon approaching within 1 kilometer, the research robot is obliterated, presumably by the sword. All further attempts at remote reconnaissance have the same result. Experiment C. 100 pre-programmed research drones are instructed to approach from multiple angles simultaneously. Result, coordination is successful and all 100 drones cross the 1 kilometer mark simultaneously. However, all of them are simultaneously obliterated by the sword. Designated observer at Site 0 reports that 2 appeared to strike in all directions at once. It did not deviate from its stance when this took place. Experiment D. Wired guided missile fire from 3 kilometers. Result, obliterates the weapon upon crossing the 1 kilometer mark, simultaneously obliterating the launch site and killing all personnel. Experiment E. Multi-warhead intercontinental ballistic missile fire from SCP nuclear submarine Nautilus. Result, see Indian Ocean Submarine Missile Experiment. Is that what that is? Or is that? No, that's Patmos. Experiment. SCP-076 and Task Force Omega-7 instructed to approach on foot. Result. 076 refuses to carry out mission despite not being informed of the mission's nature. Upon being asked why, they replied, no. Just no. Experiment G. 073. Despite the results of Experiment F, 073 was not informed of his destination until arriving at Site 0. 073 approached the site on foot. Upon seeing the Gate Guardian, they became distressed and asked to abort. Ordered to continue. At that point, the symbol on their forehead became data expunged. Experiment terminated due to data expunged. See Addendum AA. Addendum AA. By executive order of the Administrator, no further experiments are to be carried out regarding SCP-001. No further SCPs are to be exposed. It is not to be used to dispose of dangerous SCPs. See revised containment procedures for details. So I'm pretty sure that that was Cain and Abel. And Abel said no, and Cain freaked out, and then it just burnt the symbol on his head. Addendum. On blankety blank blank, the following errant transmission was received by Foundation personnel. Initiate emergency procedure Patmos Omega. Attention, all Foundation personnel. The following message was received at approximately blankety blank blank this morning from Site 0. SCP-001 has left its location. The gate is open. They are riding forth. Oh god, it's so beautiful. And then it just keeps saying, the Lord reigned, the Lord has reigned, the Lord shall reign forever. And it just keeps saying it over and over and over again. Because of this event's confluence with the recent breach of SCP-995, the opening of SCP-616, the activation of 098, the Foundation is required to immediately begin preparations for an XK class end of the world scenario. 076 and 073 are to be secured immediately. All personnel are to unlock and decode Emergency Order Patmos Omega and follow all orders within. Site 19 is to be secured and all non-essential SCPs and personnel terminated and or destroyed. Repeat, because of this event's confluence with the recent breach of 995, the opening of 616, and the activation of 098, the Foundation is required to immediately begin preparations for an XK class end of the world scenario. 076 are to be secured immediately. All personnel are to unlock and decode Emergency Order Patmos Omega and follow all orders within. Site 19 is to be secured and all non-essential SCPs and personnel terminated and or destroyed. Repeat. And it starts saying that. Then it says the Foundation is required to immediately begin preparation. I can enable my two sons. I am coming. All personnel to unlock and decode. Behold, I stand at the gate and knock. And if when heaven and where the fruit of signal lost. Upon contacting Site 00514 responded that no such message had been sent from his location and that the Gate Guardian remained inert. The transmission was initially determined to be a hoax. However, close examination of the transmission reveals a timestamp dated data redacted years in the future. It is theorized that data expunged. So either somebody from the future warned them that the rapture/apocalypse was happening, or something in the garden warned them early so they can get ready for it. Then again, they have an SCP that's Cain, they have one that's Abel, they have the Four Horsemen, there's one that is probably God, so who knows. Alright, so I'll stop this one at the factory, depending on how long the lock is. Because I do remember, I know I've read the factory, because the factory has been disturbing to me the entire time I've been reading this website, and I'm honestly a little intrigued that I haven't seen anything that came out of the factory for a while from the main series. Anyway, the lock is safe, and it is to be kept locked, along with all data pertaining to it, inside the primary archival vault on sublevel 1 at Site 10. The vault is a custom manufactured reinforced concrete and steel vertical octagonal prism, see Appendix U for full schematics, with a 2,000 kilogram 0.9 meter thick time-locked access portal in the ceiling. The time-locking schedule should be classified and available only to Dr. Y. Mirsky. Access is conditional on 3-factor authorization, e.g. keycard, fingerprint, passphrase. The lock is among the safest artifacts in the Foundation's possession, and these measures are primarily intended to prevent theft. The lock is a smooth black, perfectly ellipsoidal onyx gemstone with a mottled white pattern. It is called the lock, right? Yeah. Pattern. Wrapped around its exterior, encompassing its equator and both poles, is a complex and layered fractal filigree of gold metal. The gold is sculpted into broad strokes at what is now usually agreed to be the lower or south pole of the object, but with increasing latitude, the pattern becomes progressively more intricate. Near the north pole, also called the lock or singularity, see acquisition report below, the pattern complexity progresses beyond the capability of optical or electron beam microscopes to resolve. Further investigation is pending advances in microscopy technology. The gemstone continuously emits a small quantity of thermal radiation in the microwave range. As a result, the gold filigree is warm to the touch. The white model areas emit fractionally more radiation than the black onyx areas. Other than this, the lock is totally inert. It is opaque to all forms of electromagnetic and hard radiation, and so far indestructible. See log for Project Pluto below. Its onyx/gold composition is guessed from visual inspection, since the taking of samples for chemical analysis has proven impossible. Project Pluto Master Log. The following experiments have failed to open the lock. Conventional lockpicking, brute force assault with hammer, chisel, sledgehammer, bolt cutters, welding torch, bandsaw, etc. Sustained heating to 5,000 degrees centigrade in an industrial furnace. Artifact reflected all thermal energy, did not increase in temperature. Direct application of industrial cutting laser. It reflected all the energy. Compression and device, car crusher, hydraulic diamond press, all destroyed. Application of corrosive acids or other highly oxidizing compounds, no reaction. Detonation of plastic and solid explosives of up to 0.5 kiloton TNT equivalent at point blank range, no effect. Detonation of a 15 kiloton TNT equivalent atomic warhead at point blank range. Authorization granted retroactively by Dr. Mirsky, no effect. Project Pluto is to be immediately terminated, Dr. Hack. Project Pluto was ongoing with the full support of Foundation resources, Dr. Mirsky. Acquisition Report. The earliest record of the lock is in the handwritten journal of the minor Scottish aristocrat Sir Edwin Young, 3rd Baronet, which is 1611 to 1677. As was customary at the time, Young kept a cabinet of curiosities, a small room of artifacts of undetermined provenance, such as sculptures, preserved creatures, and trinkets. Young's journal includes references to his acquisition in 1654 of an bound jewel of onyx and filigree gold of beyond rational statement, while traveling across the Mesopotamian desert. The journal indicates that the lock was found buried in the ruin of a bitter blasted place? Older than days, or what Young took to be a temple of a fearsome death god. The lock was found encased in stone at the center of 4 enormous runic stones. Young's journal includes a sketch of the most readable side of the most well-preserved stone, but he was unable to read the runes or find a scholar who could translate them. Young's account of his journey to the location of the ruin is incomplete and has not yet been located. Young's, I guess, reflections? I don't know what that's supposed to be. Of curious provenance, or it might be selections. I don't know. Lay in storage for several centuries after he died. In 1805, his descendants donated the lock to the Scottish National Museum in Edinburgh. The curators of the museum regarded the lock as an ancient, fragile, and priceless example of ancient Sumerian metalworking. They therefore failed to discover its anomalous warmth, its indestructibility, or its impossible microscopic scale construction. They were, however, able to identify the runes in Young's sketch as tertiary Sumerian cuneiform, circa 3400 BCE. Only a partial translation is possible. With loss and blank, a noun, probably a proper noun, on this ending finality, joy permanence, possibly protection. Mr. McCandish, who performed the translation, noted, this appears to have some sort of incantation or spell of containment. A pact is the name of whatever is imprisoned within the gemstone. The lock was finally placed on a semi-permanent display in 1949. In 2003, Foundation staff observed that the mottled white patterns on the surface of the lock resembled the cosmic microwave background, a pattern of microwaves encompassing the entire observable universe, as mapped by NASA's Wilkinson Microwave Anisotropy probe earlier that year. Closer inspection showed the two patterns to be identical. The lock, along with the Baronet Young's journal, was immediately purchased by the Foundation Front Organization and transferred to Site 10, where Dr. Q Hack and Dr. Y Mirsky performed initial routine analysis. Research continues under the auspices of Dr. Mirsky, Dr. Hack having recently left the Foundation. Young's journal also includes several detailed sketches of the lock. In one of the sketches, a small ornate object resembling a key is shown fitted into its north pole. The key has not been recovered. Why would that be SCP-001? It doesn't really seem to do anything unless it's supposed to have the internet in it. Internet? No, not the internet. The universe. So, unless that's meant to be implying that the universe is inside of that rock and that's why it cannot be opened, then I don't know why that would have to be 001. But if that is why it's 001, then it sounds like the Foundation is looking for the key to the universe, which they should not have. Okay, and last for this episode is going to be the factory. Not a new tab, the factory. It's an 05's tail now? What? Why is it a tail now? Good evening, Doctor. No, don't stand up. And yes, I am who you think I am. Let's not make any more of this than it is. You know my number, and I know enough about you to make a duplicate that even your mother wouldn't be able to tell apart from the real you. No, that's not a threat, just a fact. Now, as to my business here, it seems you have stumbled upon something above your clearance. Well, no, stumbled is not the right word. Dug up? Perhaps. And you're getting to the point where further digging would end in some fairly lethal gunshot wounds. This would be a sad state of affairs, as you are otherwise quite a good researcher. Therefore, you are getting something very few people in the Foundation ever get, an explanation. Yes, we were alerted when you first started digging into SCP-001. Every researcher who's been around for a while looks into it. Most are satisfied when they uncover the angel with the flaming sword. It's buried under enough levels. But then you started looking into the factory, and that is when I knew you wouldn't stop. So here it is, plain and simple. The factory is SCP-001, but it will never be written up. It was a choice I made early on in the creation of the Foundation, and a choice I will stand by. You researchers are far too curious. I'm not sure which scares me worse. That we'll never understand the factory, or that we one day will. Ah, well. I'm sure you're eager to learn more. The factory was built in 1835. Back then it was known as the Anderson Factory, named after James Anderson, a rather well-to-do industrialist. It was built in, well, we'll just say America, and it was the largest factory yet designed. A good mile across at its widest, 3 stories tall throughout, with a special 7-story tower by the front gate that Anderson lived in. It was designed to be the ultimate factory, capable of taking care of everything, including the housing of workers. People could be born, work, live, and die without ever leaving the confines of the factory, and work they did. On everything from cattle raising and slaughtering to textiles to everything else under the sun. Now, no one knows whether James Anderson was actually a Satan worshipper. It's just as likely that he followed some kind of pagan gods. What is known is that he was very exact in the building of his factory, and in the placement of his machinery within it. Survivors claim the floor was engraved with arcane symbols that were only visible when blood flowed across them, but then the survivors claimed a lot of things. What is known is that Anderson made his money on the blood and sweat and sometimes body parts of the lower class. His journals indicate he thought of them as less than human, being put on this earth only to serve his will. Of course, at the time, no one knew about his predilections, and so people flocked to the factory, a place to both work and live at the same time. Well, of course people wanted in. Never mind the harsh hours, working conditions, sadistic security force, and all the rest. Factory workers were forced to work 16-hour days, work only shutting down on Sundays, between sunrise and sunset. Workers were not given individual rooms, instead sharing rooms with 8 other people, sleeping in shifts of 3. Medical attention was unheard of. If you were injured in the course of your duties, which most people were, you were expected to just keep working. Anyone too injured to work was dragged off by the security, never to be heard from again. For 40 years, the Anderson factory cranked out all sorts of things for people: meat, clothes, weapons. Never mind that the beef might be mixed with human. Don't care that the weapons were forged in blood. No attention need be paid to the clothes that were dyed with, well, get the idea. Rumors leaked out, but the products were so good, why bother? Until someone got out. I never met the brave soul who managed to escape, but she managed to meet with President Grant, and in 1875 he enlisted my aid. At the time I was, well, it doesn't matter. We'll say I was military, kind of, and that my people were the same. 150 good men and some few women, who were often given jobs that weren't supposed to be common knowledge. We'd been cleaning out some Confederate holdouts and some of the worst things we found down south. So we did some research and didn't like what we saw, and went in loaded for bear. I don't actually remember much about the night it all went down. Most of it blends together in my head. I get flashes sometimes of the people chained to the line, living next to dead, and damned hard to tell which was which. Children working underneath machines, the majority of the flesh scoured from their bones by great wheels and cogs, and the other things. No, I'm alright. I haven't thought about that night for a very long time. The security force wasn't much of a problem, but then Anderson's creations showed up. He'd been taking the injured workers and, well, experimenting on them. Men, if you could call them men, with multiple arms sewn together, some of them combined with animals, horrible monstrosities out of mankind's worst nightmares. They kept coming, wave after wave of not quite living creatures. I lost a lot of good people that night, And then we found Anderson's breeding pits. Girls as young as 8 chained to the walls, forced to be nothing more than... Sorry. Even today, more than a century later, that memory makes me see red. When we finally found Anderson cowering in his office, we hung him from his tower window with his own entrails. As he died, he laughed, saying it didn't matter. We could kill him, but his factory, the factory, would go on. He was still laughing 24 hours later when we finally cut him down, had him drawn and quartered, and then burned the remains. The entire time he uttered blasphemies that I don't like to think about. We spent a week cleaning that place out, freeing the workers, putting down the things we found in the basements and many lightless rooms. We pulled out things that were useful, stocked them in a house near the gate, tried to make sense of everything. 150 of us went into that hell pit that night, and only 93 came out. By the end of that week, we were down to 71. But the things we found in there, my god. Well, you've been with the Foundation a while, they wouldn't seem as amazing to you, but... We found toy guns that shot real bullets, a yo-yo that would flay the skin from anyone it touched, hammers that only worked on human flesh, a breed of skeletal horse that ran faster than anything we'd ever seen. Cloaks that seemed woven from the night itself and let men access a shadowy dimension that... I get away from myself. We found tools, both wondrous and horrible, and we were faced with a choice. I gathered my highest ranking, well, we'll call them officers, to me, and we tried to figure out what we would do. They all had opinions. The chaplain, he'd gone a little crazed, thought all the objects must be miracles sent from God, holy relics to be worshipped. Marshall and his little toady Dawkins thought there was a fortune to be made here, making and selling things to the highest bidder. The engine we all called Base, due to his deep speaking voice. He called the things an abomination and declared that we should hunt down and destroy everything we could find. And Smith thought we should take this stuff back to the president. The only one without an opinion was the old man, but he never said much of anything anyways. We argued for hours, days, trying to work it out. Me? I thought we were sitting on a gold mine, alright, but that we could use these things, these objects, to hunt down some of the scary things we'd run into down south, the other monsters the world had to offer, and use this factory for good, as a place to contain these things. Find a way to make them work for our fellow man, or at least protect our fellow man from having to deal with them. I'm sure you can figure out what happened. The chaplain snuck away in the night with his devotees, taking a couple of small items with him. Marshall we kicked out when we found him, abusing his authority. He promised he'd get revenge, and that little Dawkins shit led the rest of their group off with some of the juicier items. Base and his people tried to light the whole damn thing on fire, then just left when it didn't work. And Smith left to report back to the president. I did manage to get him to promise he'd tell Grant the factory had been destroyed. I had big plans for that place. Of course, it's kind of hard to follow through on big plans. We only have 12 other people to work with, but it was a start. And it worked for a while. We had these amazing toys, and finding people to work with us was easy. Back then, going off the grid was as simple as leaving town. We knew what we wanted, we knew what we could be. Leventhal set out getting us backing. A simple invention here, some well-invested money there. It all worked out. White and Jones set out getting us other backing. In our previous work, we found out some interesting things about people. Some secrets that powerful men didn't want getting out, and with our new position helping keep secrets, we got more people asking us to deal with their secrets. Blackmail is a dirty word, but it works. Bright, Argent, and Luminu got to work cataloging the items. Light and Bright's wife, the nurse, they made sure we kept ourselves healthy. No, it's just remembering Light. She had such unusual ideas about hygiene for the time. Brilliant woman. Shaws, Fleischer, and Karnoff dealt with training the troops. Tesla and Tamlin were in charge of figuring out how to take advantage of the items without making it obvious. We were amazing. The city we built around the factory, which we took to calling Site Alpha, was self-supporting. Agents, researchers, operatives of all sorts. Not by those names, of course, but those positions. We expanded. I'm sorry. I am an old man. I know I do not look it, but the body lies. The mind doesn't always remember right, and sometimes I get lost in my memories. Things get confused, but the long and simple of it is this. We used the factory. It always seemed to have more empty rooms to store things in. Back then, that was the word for them. Things. No skips then, no. We thought we had the factory tamed. That's one of the reasons I refused to quit this job. If there's anything I can do here, it's remind people that we will never tame these things. Contain them, yes, but as we saw with Abel, tame them? Never. After a decade or so, we were pretty organized. The 13 original of us were being called by numbers, not names. We knew how to make things work, and if a thing or two vanished inside the factory, still? And the occasional D class? What? Yes, we had D class back then, disposables. That's where the D comes from. Had to have someone to test things on. Tesla and Tamlin were both very firm about that, but yes, sometimes we lost people who didn't matter. Dr. Bright, was fond of saying it was the factory taking its toll. You can't get something for nothing. 1911 was when it all went wrong. Things, we called them fairies, an entire race of things living beside us. They could look the same as you or I. The only obvious difference was an allergy to iron. Yes, that's why we call them fairies. No, you haven't heard of them. Why? Because it's the one time the Foundation wiped out an entire race of things. Root and branch. And I'm the one who did it. We've been hunting them for some time. We'd run into them a time or two before, come out on top, so when a certain royal asked us for help, of course we were eager to get them in our debt. We have always loved having certain people in our debt. We sent a team to help out, take care of what we thought was a hunting party. The next time we saw them, their heads were on poles attached to the saddles of the creatures the fairies rode when they attacked the factory. It was horrible. 3 words, but they convey so much. I have never... Sorry, please give me a moment. I've never told this part to anyone. You should consider yourself lucky, and if you ever tell anyone any of what I'm about to impart to you, I will not just kill you, but everyone who shares your DNA in the worst ways possible. You'll think Procedure 110 Montauk is a walk in the park compared to what I do to you. We lost. The things came and they destroyed us. Rode over our emplacements, slaughtered our people, shrugged off our weapons like they were nothing. I watched my 13 go down left and right, just trying to hold the factory. And I, their leader, their friend, their father figure, godfather to Bright's 4 young children, confidant, sometimes lover, always the confessor, I ran. I ran like a scared little schoolboy, deep into the dark guts of the factory. I was chased by the things, always just one step ahead. I could hear them behind me, feel their breath upon my neck, and came to a door I'd never seen before. A bronze door, covered in Arabic script of some sort. I've never been one for languages, especially not the curvy bullshit the Musclemen use, but I didn't care. They were coming for me, and I threw the door open and I dived through it. Everything inside was different. There was a feeling of peace that nothing could hurt me here. The light was this dark red, but still felt right. My ears were filled with the steady thrumming of a gigantic heartbeat, and in front of me were the remains of Anderson. It spoke to me then, but I'll be damned if I could tell you what exactly it said. What it told me was more meaning than exact. It offered me hope. It told me that each of the things we had used from the factory, no matter what we did with them, fed it, helped it grow. But if the fairies took the factory, they would destroy it, and we couldn't have that. It offered me a deal. It could remove this event, make it have never happened. All I needed to give it was us. I didn't want to. I knew it was a bad idea, but then I saw them again, my family, my friends, dead by the hands of those bastards. I agreed. It smiled. And I found myself once more upon the ramparts, watching the horde of fairies crest the hill. My Foundation alive once more, in my hands was a weapon. I won't bore you with the details, but we slaughtered them. And with these new weapons, continued to slaughter them, everywhere they lived, everywhere they bred. My fellow O5s questioned my decision, thinking we should save some in case we might ever need them. I overruled them. We moved away from the factory, shut it down, moved our things out of there. We changed the name from things to special containment protocols, focusing on containing them, not anything else. The others were curious, but I understood I had my reasons. I boarded up the factory, locked it shut, buried it under a ton of rubble, saying it was too dangerous. I thought I'd gotten away from it until I found a thing on my desk. One of the old toy guns that shot real bullets, and it had the factory label on it. I've sent people in from time to time to see what it might be doing. Last time I sent people in to look, there was nothing there. We keep finding factory items out there. I can't help but think how many more we don't find. The people who use them and keep it hidden. I think back to the body telling me how each item used gave it energy to the factory. I never asked it energy for what. I don't think I want to know. What do we give it? D-class, mostly. Where did you think all those bodies went? There's a place. Bodies are left, and they vanish. Everyone thinks I'm a genius for figuring it out. Sometimes I have to feed it other things. Researchers, agents. They never know what's coming. It just reaches out and takes them. But in the end, we're doing more good by being here. Whatever the factory wants, whatever it is, we're doing good here. I have to believe that. And now you know. Are you happy? I didn't think so. Why tell you? I'm getting old, Everett. Should I die, someone will have to keep feeding it. Maybe you'll be different. Maybe you'll figure out how to stand up to it. But I doubt it.